You guys remember that 2007 Patriots team that was almost perfect, led by Tom Brady and the dominant receiver? Yeah, not him. Yes, Randy Moss is probably one of the top 3 best receivers ever in the history of the game. But Wes Walker was Tom Brady's go-to guy in tough situations. And even though his talent may not be as great as the likes of Randy Moss, his contribution to the game was revolutionary. He gifted us the slot receiver. How was the slot receiver prototype that we see today in the modern NFL created? Well, once again, let's go back in time. For teams looking for a wide receiver, outside of maybe Steve Largent, it was pretty simple. Find a tall, fast guy who can catch. Let's remember that back in the day, they normally would use 1 or 2 receiver sets. It was weird to see anyone use a 3 receiver set. And of course, in that era, they used to run a lot. So it was in their job description to block a lot too. At the end of the day, even if they were a big playmaker, they wouldn't get as much targets as any receiver does right now. This is the reason why if we see a picture of a lot of the greatest receivers throughout history, we'll find them alike. They'll share some characteristics. Now, as offenses started progressing and getting more pass happy with the introduction of the West Coast, people started to deploy more 3 receiver sets. But of course, back then it was still not their base offense. So pretty much they would all look for and get the same kind of receiver. It doesn't matter if they were playing outside or inside, since the majority of the time they were gonna be outside, might as well just have 3 receivers that you can just rotate around. At the end of the day, it's still gonna be weird to see them all 3 together in the same play. And then as we got closer to the modern NFL and the introduction of the spread offense, there was a big breakthrough. Yes, as we got closer to the 2000s, offenses like the 2001 Rams or those great 2003-2004 Colts or Patriots started using spread principles as their base offense. So in every play, they would normally have 3 receivers, 1 tight end, and 1 running back in the field. What was the breakthrough? Well, the third receiver, of course, couldn't line up outside. He needed to be inside between the lineman or tight end and the outside receiver. This position was called the slot. Therefore, the slot receiver. As offensive coordinators started getting more experience with this system, they realized that these long-range receivers that had great vertical speed were a little bit stiff when it comes to running routes through the middle of the field. This, coupled with a league full of great inside linebackers, produced a lot of big hits. And I'm sure it led to a lot of receivers having nightmares about running a slant. Some people thought, well, let's get bigger in that position. Let's get stronger. The problem was, you will be pretty much talking about another tight end. That would be a waste, and maybe that player wouldn't do the hit of the linebacker, but now that same linebacker would be able to cover them because they had pretty much the same speed. So the solution was going the other way around. Enter Wes Walker. Before catching passes for Tom Brady and eventually Peyton Manning, Walker was a running back turned wide receiver coming out of college. He was 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighed 195 pounds. He had a really modest 40-yard dash with a 4.6. Yeah, he was not the fastest, but he was really quick in short areas. And what separated him apart was his ability to play all over the field in special teams. Unfortunately, his size was a concern, so he went undrafted on the 2004 NFL draft. After being picked up and released after the first game of the season by the San Diego Chargers, the Miami Dolphins took a chance on him, where he first received a shot by doing plays on their special teams, and oh boy did he run with it. During a game against the Patriots, he did it all. He returned a punt for a touchdown, he returned a kickoff for a touchdown, he kicked an extra point and a field goal. In that game, he earned FEC Special Teams Player of the Week. For the rest of that season, he was a huge contributor in that way. And in the next 2 seasons, in 2005 and 2006, he started developing himself as more than just an occasional or gadget player. He started earning his role as the third receiver, the slot receiver. During those 2 seasons, he increased his reception totals and his yards totals. But most importantly, since the Dolphins are in the AFC East and they would face the Patriots twice a year, somehow, some way, he would always show out. And that that caught Bill Belichick's eye, which, as it shouldn't surprise us anymore, it was way ahead of the curve. Entering the 2007 season, the short receiver was entering his free agency period, in which the Patriots decided to sign him and trade their second round and their seventh round to the Miami Dolphins in exchange for him. From then on, the rest is history. He became a dominant receiver for the Patriots, shattering his own records and the team records when it comes to receptions, yards, and touchdowns. His connection with Brady, especially on third downs, was phenomenal. But what made him so special? Well, he took the league by storm. He was the key to the puzzle that everyone was trying to figure out. He was not the fastest, and maybe he wouldn't be able to block as many defenders as other receivers could, but he was a craftsman on his role. He was quick, he could execute any route, he could catch in traffic, he was faster than linebackers and safeties, and he was extremely smart. He knew how to read defenses, where to plant himself to catch the pass, and most importantly, how to avoid taking big shots and hits. This eventually led to the option route, which was the closest thing to backyard football as you can imagine. The Patriots would put him in the slot and let him run 5 or 6 yards and then decide which way to go, depending on how they would cover him. This, in turn, created nightmares for the linebackers in this case now. Even though he unfortunately lost the 2 Super Bowls he participated in with the Patriots, he was great with this organization. He was so good that even Peyton Manning himself asked his Broncos general manager when he was there to hire him, which resulted in him, with the help of Manning and the other great Broncos offensive players, in one of the most prolific offenses ever, which led that team to a Super Bowl. Unfortunately, he lost that one too. But let's be objective here. Career-wise, he had a great one. His stats are awesome as an individual, especially for a small receiver who went undrafted, right? He's definitely one of the greats. And no, I'm not comparing him to any of the top 10 receivers that anyone can have in their list. But his impact goes way beyond that. During his last years with the Patriots, there was this little kid who was a 6th rounder named Julian Edelman. As many of you may already know, he became his heir apparent. Another underdog story of maybe not the tallest receiver, but a guy who has a big heart. And well, we know how important he has been for the resurface of the Patriots in these last years, helping them win 3 Super Bowls. But even though Walker helped him and taught him some of his tricks, Edelman was simply the first shoe to drop. We all know the NFL is a copycat league. If something's working somewhere else, I'm gonna try to emulate that and make it work in my own system. And so, it happened. After the rest of the league realized what kind of impact a player such as the quote-unquote slot machine can have on a team, they all went and looked for one. And from then on, everything changed. Nowadays, scouts don't look for wide receivers anymore. Now, it is a natural thing that they either need to look for an outside receiver or for a slot receiver. And yes, you guessed it, that player has to have Walker's characteristics. That, as fans, has gifted us the likes of huge playmakers such as Tyreek Hill or Jarvis Landry nowadays. So this unlikely hero may not have the rings, may not have the best stats, and some may say that his quote-unquote replacement is or was better than him. But that little great receiver right there changed every single offense in football forever.